Hello everyone and welcome to the Symfoni Translate presentation. What I'm going to show you today is the Symfoni Translate functionalities been developed by Fujitsu in a co-creation project with some of our ServiceNow customers. So what I'm going to show you is some interlinguistic communication tools in ServiceNow that can help on communicating between stakeholders. What I'm going through today is first of all to talk about that challenge that spawned up this original applications that we have made in ServiceNow. Going to talk about the Symfoni Translate functionalities. So which functionalities are we actually adding into the ServiceNow platform? I'm going to give you a demo of the end user translations and of the backend translations. And I'm going to finalize this presentation by giving you a view into which type of business case there might be to applying some of these functionalities. I would encourage all of you to ask questions. Please do that on the chat, and then we will take all the questions by the end of the session. So in terms of the challenge, first of all, I get a lot of you who are here and who's participating know a lot of these challenges that we're going to meet when you're facilitating processes through ServiceNow. First of all, we often see that the requester and the supporter talk different languages. We often see that also, for example, in outsourcing scenarios. So this means that we have a requester that might, for example, speak German, and you have a supporter that speaks English, and they cannot communicate, or they communicate with a lot of misunderstandings in it. We also often see that there is a long time to resolution of tickets due to bad communication. There's a lot of misunderstandings when you have two people communicating that is not sufficient in that language that they're communicating in. We often also see that many users are not confident enough to be logging a ticket in a language which is not the native language. We often I see many customers who has the principle that all tickets has to be registered in English because that's the support that they can do and the language support they have. In this case, it actually ends up in many users not even logging their tickets, which means you have a lot of shadow issues out in your organization, which is never even handled. And then finally, we often see a scenario where a company is outsourcing some of their IT, and they get a support in, for example, just English. And if they need to purchase other languages, it becomes much more expensive. So this is often the case where you see this outsourcing scenario becomes a lot more expensive due to all the language barriers in between the supporter and the requester. So what Symfoni Translate does and what it can do is that it has these 4 applications that we are using. I'm going to show you 2 of them today, but the first of it is the end user translations. So this means that whenever a end user logs into the portal, that end user can go in and translate whatever, for example, have been written in English to German, because German is the native language. That means they will have way easier to understand the communication from the requester. It also allows them to type in an answer to this in German. When that is then received on the other end, this is where we move to the backend translations. The supporter is talking English, but receives a German message from the end user. In this case, they can translate from German into English and then better understand what the end user actually means. And in this case, they will then be able to answer in English, and then that goes back to the end user translations on the portal, and the end user can then translate back into German. So this is kind of the stakeholder interaction between requester and supporter. We also have what we call a platform translation assistant. ServiceNow comes with a little more than 40 different out-of-the-box languages. In some languages, if you, for example, look to the Scandinavian countries, this is not supported. So that means you can, for example, not get ServiceNow in Swedish. The platform translation assistant is a application that helps you to get some of the way in this translation of the system itself. So this is not about the interaction on tickets, not about the data on the tickets, but it's about the ServiceNow platform itself. So that could be portals. This could be entire backend applications that needs to be translated. The platform translation assistant can get you approximately 50 to 60% of the way with an accuracy of 50 to 60%. The reason that it is not 100% accuracy on this translation is that you have a lot of single words in the backend. So for example, how would a machine know how to translate a word like state? There's quite a few options to translate that. So that's why the accuracy is a bit lower, as there's a lot of single words compared to the end user and backend translation. Whereas you have a whole sentence that can give some context to that word. Next one is translation for third party. You see many people, many ServiceNow instances, which are integrating between a service provider and a service integrator. We see many customer vendor relationships. We also see many partnerships where different ServiceNow instances need to send ticket back and forth. In this case, we often also see that there is language barriers. This is, for example, often due to the end user translation. Let's say that you have an end user that needs to log a ticket where they're getting all the ticket support that is going through an integration to an external vendor. That vendor might only be able to support in English. So this is also a case where they might be working in the same instance, but they're working in their own ITSM system. What this translation for third party does is that it also exposes this translated values of the entire form to our external entities and other ITSM systems that we need to provide it to. So that means if you got the Symfoni Translate application, you will be able to provide translated tickets to your third-party integration partners. In the bottom of all this, in the core setup of Symfoni Translate, we have what we call a security translation log. This is a log that logs every interaction that has been done through Symfoni Translate. What it does is that it can give you a setup which tells you who initiated a translation, when was it done, from which language to which language, etc. So you get the full tracking of the entire action being done through your ServiceNow system, between your ServiceNow system and the translation engine. The reason for this is that we are sending out information out of the ServiceNow platform into an external translation service. Why is it then important? Because we might end up in a situation where confidential information is being sent out of our platform. So in this case, it's very important that we're able to backtrack who did it and when was it done. So how is this an improvement to the current situation? Because right now, the situation where you have these challenges that I mentioned in the beginning, a user, whether it's an end user or a backend user, they have to handle the ticket. So what they do in their everyday work is that they open up a browser, go into Google Translate and translate the values. This case, they send out information and the organization has absolutely no possibility to actually track what information has been sent out. The security translation log provides that. On top of this, we have a very easy to administrate user interface. I will show you how you are configuring and setting up different languages, etc. And we also, of course, have the generic reporting capabilities within the ServiceNow platform. The way Symfoni Translate works is that it's using external translation engines such as Google Translate or Microsoft Translator. This then allows our Symfoni Translate functionalities to use these machine learning algorithms, which is embedded in the, for example, Google Translate system. This also means that as Google Translate gets better over time, this is a learning machine. So that means Google Translate keeps on learning and becomes better and better, might even provide new languages. It also is automatically imported into the Symfoni Translate functionalities. So that means by doing this purchase one time, we still can benefit from the whole development that is being done within Google Translate, for example. The next thing is what I basically pitched before, that the machine learning algorithms in translation services is not working on a normal one-to-one dictionary lookup. It is working on a semantic translation. So this means that it looks on the context of an entire sentence and translate the meaning of that sentence into another language. This is why that we have a high accuracy on sentences that is, for example, used in the end user translations and the backend translations. And that is why we have a lower accuracy on the platform translation assistant, as there is many single words which has no context to it. So that's why a semantic translation makes a huge difference in the way that you do translations. The last point is only true for the Google Translate algorithms. The way that it's doing translation is that Google Translate has automatically created what is called an interlingua. This is an intermediary language that is being translated to, which means that you, for example, would translate from German to interlingua, doing this by matching the meaning of the sentence, and then from the interlingua to English. This also means that when you have this middle station, you are able to do translation between languages which have never even been trained in the machine before. This means that if, for example, there's been a lot of translations between English and Japanese, this is mapped through the interlingua. But this also means that if there has been a lot of translations between English and German, but never between German and Japanese, it means that due to this interlingua, you will be able to translate from German to Japanese, even though there's never been a prerequisite of this. These capabilities is being imported as a full service into the Symfoni Translate functionalities. I'm going to show you a demo now, and what I'm going to demo for you is starting at the end user perspective. So we're starting off as an end user, logging into a portal, a service portal, and then looking into, well, how can this Symfoni Translate help us in understanding our ticket? Afterwards, we will move to the backend, turn the cube, and try to see the same ticket from the backend as a support. Then we will move into looking at our translation log. What type of information does it provide us? And of course, also how to administrate and how to add new languages and what is actually available. So this means that I will move to the portal. Right now, I'm logged in as Able Tutor. Able Tutor is a requester. He has an issue with his Wi-Fi. He's already been logging this previously, and he now wants to go in and follow his ticket. So using standard functionalities in ServiceNow, he can go in and say, I have logged this in, for example, in Norwegian. So as you can see, we have different languages here and here. So that means we have two parties that is communicating on different languages. In this case, Able He knows what he's written himself, but he's interested in seeing what the system administrator is answering him on. So he is able to go in and then translate this, for example, into German. The way that it shows is the user interface. We know that a translation might not be 100% accurate, but maybe only 95% accurate. The reason that we are showing this as a temporary value is that we do not want to mess with original data. So that means we are keeping this is functioning as the data, and this is the user interface help to able tutor. So this means he can go in and translate and write back in his own language as he has done here. If we then try to turn the cube, we're now going in to be the system administrator, which in this case is our supporter. His backend looks like this. He wants to go in and open a ticket. He navigates to a ticket, this incident. As you can see, it says, Wi-Fi fungerer ikke korrekt, kan dere se på det? He does not know what that means. So what he does is that he wants to translate this into English. He presses the button and it translates. This is applicable to all the free text fields. So he could, for example, also translate description in this case, which in this case is the same, but you might want to translate this into Spanish because it's a Spanish-speaking supporter. That is also an option in here. This is just one of the things that is able to do here. We also want to go in and look at our previous history. See, it says, Dette haster, jeg vil se knowledge 18 stream. So what you can do is that you can go in and then translate this into English. So this is applicable for all the free text fields. We have set it up to only be on the short description, the description, and the activity log down here. So what I've shown you now is the end user translation from able tutor's point of view. I've shown you from the system administrator who was a supporter. That was the backend translations. And I want to show you now what is seen only from a system administrator point of view. So we have a whole application out here, which first of all shows us the entire dashboard. So that means everything on the usage of the system. So we can see how many times has this been used today in total, how does it look over time, all the basic functionalities that you would know from ServiceNow. So we have basic dashboards here. The data that this draws upon, that feeds into this dashboard, which lies behind all these graphs that you see here, is the translation history. This is the security translation log. This is where you can see when was a translation sent, what was the original text, what was the translated text, who did this, what was the source, was it from the backend or from the portal, what target language was it translated into, what was the target language code. You would also be able to see what was the table and which fields was actually sent to the other party. So that means you can backtrack to the specific value that was sent and received, who did it, and when was this done. Here you have access to everything that has been translated through the Symfoni Translate application. The next thing I want to show you is how to administrate all this. First of all, you want to see which available languages is here. As you can see, we have right now set the system up to both be able to partner up with Google or Microsoft. You of course have to choose just one of these translation services. We see the way highest accuracy using Google. So let's say I want to see how many languages is available. I go in and say I only want to see all the ones that is from Google. And as you can see, I have 104. As Google are adding new languages, we also receive them in here. This means that as Google gets better, this system gets better. So these are all the 104 available languages that we can translate into or that we can translate from. The next thing we want to see is the field setup. The field setup is where you can go in and choose which fields and tables do we want this to apply to in the backend. So this is the setup of our backend translations. Our backend translations goes across the entire ServiceNow platform. So this means you can apply the Symfoni Translate functionality to any table and any field on the platform. So if we, for example, go in and look to the incident which we had opened before, the way that you do this is that you go in and open the following ticket. As you can see, the way it has been set up is that I've created a new value in this field, in this table. First of all, I've activated it. I choose which table it should apply to. I choose the field names. So that means the description, the close notes, and the short description. So if I, for example, want to add more fields, I can basically go in and add them through here. So here you can see everything which is available on the incident table. On top of this, I can also choose whether or not I want this to be on the activity logs. So if I, for example, want to remove, first of all, deactivate it, basically just do like this, update this ticket, and then I can move back into my incident, and then you will see it does not pop up here. If I want to reactivate it, I go into my fields, go into my record here in the lookup table, I activate it, but I then don't want it to be on the close notes, and I don't want it to be on the short description. I then update this, and then you'll be able to see when we go into the incident that is only there on the short description here. So this is how you set it up. This applies to every table across the entire ServiceNow platform, where you can add this basically by the speed of light to be very ServiceNow compliant in my wording of this. The next thing that you should be aware of is that we have also a setup for the portal, and we have what we call a button setup. The button setup in this case is that you can choose whether what should be the content of the button. So let's go to the portal. You can see it says translate, and then I can add and change my button label here and add it to different languages, which means that if I log in here on in German or in Swedish or whatever, it would have a different content and a different label on my button. So this means you're also able to change this and basically do this by a blink of an eye using these reference tables. We could dig a lot deeper into the entire setup behind it, but that is basically also hidden. The last thing that you need to know when you're setting this up is that you would elevate your role to a security admin, and as you can see, your menu out here would change if you move to the translate now. You're also able to set this up. Maybe you need to reload the page here. I also now have, or I can set this up to different new setups, as you can see down here on the configuration. I can set this up to either my Google key or my Microsoft API key. So I only fill out one of them, as this says, and then you basically go in, create your Google account, paste in your Google key, and then you're up running. There's nothing more to it. And this is how easy it's done. So what I've shown you now with end user translations and the backend translations, the security translation log, and how to administrate and set this up. So the next question is, what can we use this for? What kind of benefits? Yes, we have already been through that, but what of the financial benefits are we moving into? So right now, I want you to give you some input for your business case to show you some of the monetary value that you can get out of this session based on some very few assumptions. It's very easy to calculate what could potentially be the financial benefit of this. So if we start in this Excel sheet, and I will be happy to share this with the rest of you afterwards. The first input parameters that we have here is the percentage of tickets that this benefit applies to. So that means, obviously, Symfoni Translate won't help you a lot if it is two English-speaking people who are communicating. So that's not necessarily a big benefit to it. So let's say that at least 50% of your tickets is between people that does not necessarily speak the same language. So we say we have an applicability rate of 50%. At the same time, we want to say how much time can we save for the end user? In this case, it was able tutor. We say that we can save maybe just 2.5 minutes. That's very low in this case, but let's say we can save 2.5 minutes. At the same time, how much time can we save for the supporter? In this case, let's say we also can save just 2.5 minutes for him. We also want to set up how many tickets do we have per year. So let's say we have 1 million tickets per year in all. We have a cost per hour on the employees on 50 euros per hour. Given these assumptions, you will end up with a financial benefit per year on 2 million euros. And then just in the case where you, for example, can save 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you have a very, very different business case. So what I'm saying is that when you have an application looking like Symfoni Translate, and it can be applied across the entire platform, and is a generic service you can provide out to all your applications in ServiceNow, it becomes such a big volume that even the smallest, tiniest difference on each ticket can make a huge financial impact on your organization. So this is what I have to show you today. I hope you will be looking into these financial benefits, as they can become quite significant, especially if you have a big need for these. So you can end up of these translations where you can end up in situations where you can save a lot of time. You might even have 10 million per year. See, it's quite small changes in your ticket applications here that will end you up with a quite significant, like super significant financial benefit per year. This was what I had for you today. This was the Symfoni Translate functionalities that can be applied to any ServiceNow platform, and is a Fujitsu product.
Yes, thank you, Matthias. We have 2 questions for you. So I'll start with the first one. If I understood it right, you're using Google Translate or Microsoft in this solution. Is Google or Microsoft logging the text that are sent in their servers? Of course, you show the security log, but it only proves trackability of translation activities in your instance. What control you have to avoid Google or Microsoft logging ticket info due to translations done by them?
This is, first of all, very good question, because this is significantly a significant security aspect that you need to consider in this case. The way that the translation engine works, both for Google and for Microsoft, is that they're logging and learning all translations. There is no way around this. So if you want to utilize these services, you have to accept that they're logging this. So that means on your Google accounts and all your Microsoft accounts. There is no way around them logging it on their servers. The way that we have handled this security issue, where we have already implemented Symfoni Translate, has been to say that you might end up in a situation where you're pushing this out to an external service and thereby go against some confidentiality aspects. What is then important to note and to tell all your users was that the responsibility was pushed out to the users, saying that can be done through, of course, through processes. It can be easily done through in the ServiceNow platform by giving a warning. You are now sending out information to an external party. Please be aware of confidentiality aspects in your text. So the way it was handled on the current implementation has been to say we don't take the responsibility. We're just improving the logging capabilities even better in case of something going wrong, but we push out the responsibility to the users. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is, can translations be done automatically so users can select the language in their profile and always get the notes translated to that language automatically?
Yes, that can be done. It is already, this is not implemented in this demo, but we have a other working instance where you can choose a preferred language. So you always have a preferred language, and then it pops up. It would still be popping up in the user interface, but you can do this automatically. What you should be aware of in this case is that you have the translation services is is charging per API call. Per character in the API call. So that means if you do some automation, you're also exposing yourself to a risk. In this case, it's minor risk, but that your charges for the API functionalities from Google or from Microsoft, that runs wild. On the other hand, the charge per character is so extremely low that given you have, let's say, 1,000 users that regularly uses this, I have a hard time seeing that you would pay more than 50 euros per month. So it is just to say that you should be aware of this, but there is a very, very low risk, and you can of course put up blockers to this. But the idea is that you, on your own user profile, select a preferred target language, and then it always translate free text fields into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthias. Another question is Swedish not a supported language right now? If not, when will that be included in the translation service?
Good question. Let me show you. So what we will do here is that we will be moving into our translation service and go into our available languages. What we want to see in this case is that we have set it up to Google. So I want to see show matching. And then I can go in and say, okay, I can search for Swedish and I can see it available here. So what I want to show you now is also when we, for example, are looking to our blog out here, you can see it says English, German, Spanish, and French. If I want to add more fields, I can do like this. So I've done a preparation. When you're setting up all these different languages and you want to activate them, you already have them available. So as you can see here, I already have Swedish in here. I have Norwegian, I have Danish. This is one of the 104 languages I was referring to before. And the single thing I do is that I choose which order this should be displayed upon. So for example, I want to, let me just remove this one and then say equals 0. You can see that it says all the ones that is visible, true, 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 and true. And you see it has an order of 10, 12, 20, 30, which gives you the languages and the order on this dropdown. So what I can do here is that I can activate many more languages. So in case I want to activate all these languages, Portuguese, Finnish, Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, Polish, and Dutch, what I just have to do is to click like this. Then I'll be activating all these languages. And what I then will do is that I will move back into my incident. When you see the drop down here, it is way further and way bigger. So that means I can now choose Swedish. So Swedish is already available and you will be able to translate into Swedish. Thank you.
Thank you. And then there's the last question here. How accurate is the technical translation?
First of all, we need to differentiate when we say technical translation, and I'll try to come up with two different two different answers to that. First of all, if we look just to a normal sentence and these free text translations, this varies from language to language. So the best thing that we do and the way that we are advising our customers to do an assessment of this is basically just to go into Google Translate through a browser and try it here. It's the exact same engine behind it. So this is where you can measure up the accuracy. So this is what I would suggest that you do. Go either into Google Translate or into the Microsoft Translator and try it out online. It's the same engine behind it. It has the exact same exact same accuracy. What we see for so that was for the free text fields, but this is in the where you have actual sentences with a context. If we are then moving in to what we call the platform translation assistant, we see an accuracy of approximately 50 to 60%. This is mainly due to a lot of single words in there that is more difficult to translate. For example, state can mean a lot of things. It could be the state of California. It could be the state like the state of a ticket. It could also be a country. It could be a lot of different things. So I think that's my most accurate answer to this because it varies from language to language depending on how much the engine has learned. You can test it online, and you should know that in general on the platform translations, if this is what you mean by technical translations, that is on approximately 50 to 60%, and you need to do a manual verification and correction of the translations afterwards, but it gets you 50% of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias, and thank you to everyone that joined this webinar. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact us and we will answer you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.